Hello everyone, Lytro Storm here, and today we are finally back doing the finale of What If Kenny Survived, Part 5. Now, I'm not going to provide a recap as usual with The Walking Dead What Ifs because there are branching choices and recapping everything would just be pointless. So let's just get straight into it, but as always, if you like the video, be sure to like the video and subscribe if you're new because it would be great to see new people in the community and just have more subscribers, obviously. But like I said, only if you enjoy the video and want to see more content. But as always, be sure to join my Discord and follow me on Twitter. Links in the description. Alright, so in the last part we left off with the party before the gang leaves to go rescue Omar and Asim. So, now they're gonna do that. Upon leaving, the plan is the same as in canon. They hide amongst the herd, provided by James, and the main three head into the ship, along with Lewis/Violet, depending on who you went with that one night. The four head inside and handle a few dudes before making it to the cell Omar and Asim are trapped in. Lewis tries to open it when Lily, Dorian, and Minerva all show up and aim their weapons at the group. Kenny pulls out his knife, AJ his gun, and Clementine her bow. This obviously isn't going to be enough, and they all get locked up, with them separating AJ and Lewis/Violet by putting them with Omar and Asim. Lily and Minerva then tell the parable of the twins, and Kenny tells Lily that she's become even worse than her father was. Lily yells that he doesn't get to talk about her dad after what he did. Kenny tells her that he was just trying to protect them, and Lily comes back by saying that she's doing the same now. Dorian still threatens to cut off Lewis/Violet's fingers, and you can have AJ stop her or let it happen. Lily then leaves the cell, and Clem then opens the door with AJ's knife, and Dorian and Minerva return. Kenny kills Dorian with her own weapon, and Lewis/Violet help Clementine knock Minerva out, which would show their growth. They would want to help her, but Kenny and Clem convince them that they don't have the time. They plant the bomb and then head to the top of the ship. Here they find Lily holding Ten and James captive. Ten threatens to shoot Lily, but this ends up with her getting his gun, and then our group shows up. Lily sees them aiming her gun and says how tiring it's getting to see them every time she tries to do something. Kenny tells her it's the same with her. She asks why Clementine still sticks with him, and her options for response are, "He's all I have left," "He taught me loyalty," or "I had to." Lily will counter these by saying that she was with her before too, her loyalty will get her killed, or that she's stronger than she thinks she is, and she would be a good help with her. One of her people then shows up and James fights them off. Kenny tells her that Clem made the smart decision, and that she could have been with them if she hadn't made a stupid one. Lily then goes silent before asking a question. Did he do it? Kenny asked what she meant by this, and Lily said, "Ben." Kenny said yes. She said that she knew it, and asked what he did in response. Kenny can then say that he spared him, or that they left him, based on Lee's choice in Season 1. Lily will then ask if he forgave him, even after Ben's death. If Lee left Ben, then he will say that he hasn't forgiven him yet, but he's tried. And if Lee saved Ben, he will simply say, yes. Lily will then tell Kenny that she'll never forgive him for what he did, and pulls out her gun. Clem will see this and charge at her, forcing her to drop it. The two will then fight as Kenny grabs Clementine's knife and stabs Lily in the arm. She then headbutts Clem off of her and goes after Kenny. The two fight, screaming at each other, but Kenny is ultimately winning, and Clementine grabs the knife out of her arm and tries to stab her again, but unfortunately Lily dodges. Ultimately, at the end, Kenny is able to throw her against the wall, and AJ picks up her gun. Here this whole thing will still happen, and I see a variety of different outcomes here. Kenny would be telling AJ to take the shot along with Tennessee, while James and Lily will ask him not to. If you're silent, AJ will not do it. Same if you tell him not to. If you tell him to, he will do so. However, if you're silent or tell him not to, Kenny will take the gun from him. He will then aim it at Lily, with her accepting her fate. He will then do one of two things: pull the trigger, or put the gun in his pocket and tell them to get moving. This will be based on whether or not Clementine told him he was dangerous after killing Jane in Season 2. If you did, then he will put the gun away. If not, that he will shoot Lily just once. The group will then begin to leave as the ship would explode. That marks the end of episode 3. Let's now move on into episode 4, the end. Episode 4 begins with Clementine and AJ trying to escape the ship, just like it did in canon. As they go down, they see Kenny is already on the ground. He tells them that they need to go, and so the three begin to run off, seeing Lily if Kenny and AJ both spared her. She tries to escape, and Kenny says that she needs to learn how to put the past behind her. Lily is very somber and angry about the situation, not knowing what to be. As she leaves, Kenny apologizes for what he did to Larry, and he sounds very sincere while doing it. Lily's only response is, "I," before stopping and staying silent as she sails off. As they leave, they see Minerva, and Clementine stops her from attacking. She then gets overrun, and they all try to escape. Once they make it into the cave, along with Ten and James, if you add AJ kill Lily, James will be angry and try to take him just like in canon, but Kenny would not have it and begin fighting. Kenny would be stronger, but James has had some training and would be able to hold his own, and actually sometimes even get the better of Kenny. He'd then decide to give up and just leave, or stay and fight off the walkers for them. If you didn't have AJ kill Lily, he would just split up after the cave. Lewis/Violet then shows up, and all of them travel together, and when talking about rebuilding the school or the imaginary house, Kenny asks to add a boat. The five then come across the bridge with a gap in it. This is when Minerva returns.
Yeah, I think we can. We just gotta be careful not to land too hard.
She shows up and tries to convince Ten to die with her like in canon. However, with Kenny in this scenario, it would make this a lot easier to handle for the group. Kenny and Clem would both hold off the walkers with the bow and Kenny's last few bullets. With only a few extra shots from Kenny, I don't see him hitting Minnie during this time. However, this would be a cool similarity to the first season's final stand in the house in the final episode. Kenny runs out and immediately tosses Ten onto the other side. This left him open for a gunshot to the back from Minerva. She then kicks Clementine down before rushing Lewis/Violet. Clem and Minnie battle, but Kenny comes in with the save, grabbing Minnie's axe and tossing it to the side. Lewis/Violet then jump across with AJ to be with Ten. Clem and Kenny then both go ham on Minerva, and she can barely even take it. Eventually, she pulls out her gun and tries to shoot Clementine, but Kenny kicks her in the face. She reaches for the gun again, but Kenny grabs her axe and goes to swing, but unfortunately misses. Clementine then picks up her gun and aims it at her. AJ yells that the walkers are closing in, and so Kenny tells Clem to go, and he'll make sure she doesn't go anywhere. She does so, and Clem aims the gun at Minnie to make sure she doesn't try anything as Kenny then gets across. Minnie then falls to her knees, completely broken and out of will as Kenny jumps across. Clementine then decides whether to shoot her or leave her for the walkers. The group leaves with no deaths. Lewis/Violet along with Ten both go over the fence and end up stuck and have to escape. Kenny, Clem, and AJ all run off and have to climb the rock wall. Kenny does now have a gunshot wound and is running low on stamina since he's been running, fighting, and jumping around with his wound. With the walkers closing in, Kenny tells Clem to climb first, and she makes the decision to follow his words or let him up first while she covers him since she has the gun. Going up first will result in Kenny getting bitten on the leg. Covering Kenny will have Clementine be the one bitten like in canon. I know that Clem wasn't slowing them down, so the walkers would take longer getting to them, but Kenny is also wounded and does slow them down because of both that and his stamina loss. Plus, the fight with Minerva took a little bit longer as well. Anyway, the three make it to the top and Kenny/Clementine check their bite mark, and Kenny says that there's still hope if they're fast enough. They then call back Reggie. That makes it sound like they call him. They then call back to Reggie, who got bitten and had his arm cut off in Season 2. If Lee cut off his arm in Season 1, then Clementine can have the option to say it didn't work for Lee, to which Kenny would respond that he kept passing out and didn't get it cut until hours after he was bitten. The three now hurry to safety, and instead of the original tone of the scene feeling really bleak and like Clementine's last moments with AJ, instead it is more so a desperate last hope for survival for whoever was bitten. The three make it to James's barn and hurry to shut themselves in, with Kenny admitting that he has no more left in him after everything that has happened. He sits on the ground as AJ and Clem protect him. Kenny gives Clem the axe so she can fight, while AJ focuses on closing doors and blocking them. You cut between gameplay between Clem and AJ, and eventually it comes down to them realizing that they're trapped and probably doomed. In Clementine's ending, she will sit next to Kenny and basically say that they both know what needs to happen. Both of her family members tell her that they can't just do that, and are sad and desperate on the situation. Eventually, it comes down to Clem's decision. You have to kill me, or you have to leave me. Kenny tries to fight against this, but can barely move at this point, having exhausted all of his remaining strength. AJ helps him up and walks him to the door. He then either begins to move outside the door or walk back to Clem. Either way, he swings the axe down onto her. The flashback of Kenny and Clem going through McCarroll Ranch and retrieving AJ then happens. After this, it cuts to AJ spearing fish, and Kenny's voice either compliments him on his work or tells him he'll do better next time, depending on if he caught them. He then appears on screen and tells AJ about how he used to fish with Duck. As the two wrap up, Ten shows up and tries to talk to AJ. Kenny then leaves the two alone, where the boy tells his friend that he was sorry for being dumb and putting the group in jeopardy again. AJ can forgive him or not, same choices like in canon. Ten asks him if he can teach him to be like him, to which AJ can either respond with a yes, or say that he needs to stay an artist. They get back home, and Clementine makes her reveal with only one leg. We then get some great last moments with them all just happy and stuff like that in canon. Alternatively, the Kenny ending, which is a much better ending in my opinion, would see Kenny being the one with the ultimate sacrifice of leaving himself to die, which ultimately is his character throughout most of the games, always trying to put himself in harm's way for others. Well, except in Season 1, but that's why he developed. Kenny would be making the ultimate sacrifice of leaving himself to die, with Clementine being the one who has to choose to kill him or leave him. Before she can grab the axe, AJ does so, and then flashback. AJ fishing with Clem, and then going back to see Kenny with only one leg. So in one ending, Clem has one leg, and in the other, Kenny. And that is where we will be leaving this series. This is the end of the final season, and here we have the story going mostly pretty similarly to in canon, but with a much happy ending for both seasons 3 and 4. In the final season, Lewis, Violet, and Ten all survive, and so does Kenny, obviously. Also, more of the Garcia family depending on the ending, and even Trip. No way to save Conrad though, unfortunately, but whatever. But I hope you all enjoyed the ride, and I will definitely be looking forward to doing a Jane variation in the future, looking at what would have happened if she had lived. So yeah, be sure to like the video and subscribe if you enjoyed and you want to see more content like this. But as always, tell me if you liked this part, tell me what you think will happen next, comment your requests for future videos, and subscribe.